Blunders to Blessings with Kerim, Season 1. John Drury from Burnout to Balance.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Blunders to Blessings. In a world obsessed with success stories, Blunders to Blessings dares to challenge the status quo and shine a spotlight on the often overlooked journey of failure. In this podcast series, you'll hear from successful individuals who have faced adversity head-on, sharing their biggest blunders and the invaluable wisdom gained from each experience. My notable guest today is John Drury. John Drury is a seasoned leader with over 40 years of experience in various roles, from musician and youth worker in Southwest Sydney to CEO of a community organisation in the Blue Mountains. After burnout in 2007 and experiencing personal setbacks, John redefined his path, becoming an executive coach and business mentor. For the past 15 years, he has helped business owners implement growth strategies, build effective teams, and achieve work-life balance. He is the author of Integrate and now enjoys a fulfilling life with his wife, Jo, 3 daughters, and 7 grandchildren. Congratulations, John. That is an amazing journey. And thank you for being here today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Kerim. Thank you for your very kind word.
Thank you. You're welcome. And now I've had the pleasure to be one of your customers. John, as you know, and as we touched on, most cultures and even the education system looks at failure as a negative thing. And as we grow up, it almost becomes a stigma. And we're looking at how we can redefine that in this podcast. So I'd like to ask you, what is your definition of the word failure?
What I found helpful, it's not original to me, but failure is good feedback. It's not final. It's feedback. Someone like John Maxwell says that. He's got a book called Failing Forward, because basically what I've learned, you watch a baby start to walk, going from crawling to walking. They fall down lots of times, but it doesn't stop them from keeping on going. But somehow throughout life, we feel like if we fail, if we fall, then that's it. We're done. And we should quit. Whereas we need to go back to babies and learn the lesson. And I remember as a father putting my little girl, one of my girls, against the wall, and she's just starting to walk around tables with her hands holding herself up, put her against the wall, and she took her first 3 or 4 steps. Nothing more exciting than that. And she reaches out and then she goes plop. But that didn't devastate her. She was ready to do it again. So it's failure's feedback. It's part of learning. It's part of the growth process. But you've got to get your head around that and realize that and stay there and not get a defeatist attitude to it.
Has that definition changed for you from, maybe from your younger days to today? Has the experience of life changed that definition for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think when I was younger and less secure internally, I was trying to prove myself, wanting to make a mark, wanting to do something good with my life. And the pressure, that internal pressure, I don't think I was trying to please too many people. I don't think I had it. Like, my dad was always very encouraging. So it was more proving to myself and maybe trying to please God, or I've got a faith in God. And so trying to please God in a warped kind of way in my own head, that pushed me and drove me. And so failure was a bit devastating at times. Or if I didn't get accepted or didn't find the result I was looking for, then I'd get frustrated with that rather than going, okay, what can I learn here? But gradually over time, it's more, okay, well, what can I learn is the question I ask rather than what's wrong with me.
And can you share briefly maybe 3 of your biggest blunders, if you like, in your life?
Only 3. Okay.
That's good. I know, I can relate to that comment.
So, well, I've been around a bit for a while. I can remember I became a leader of an organization, and it grew very quickly in the lower mountains. And I was 28, and we got lots of people coming into, it was a church. So I was pastoring this church, and it grew way faster than I expected. And a lot of older people, and I felt like I was young, and there's people in their 40s and 50s coming into the church who were looking to me, and somehow something was working and they were attracted. And so I needed help with being on the team. So we had a guy come into the church who was older, in his 50s, and he had some experience. So stupidly, I trusted him without checking him out thoroughly enough. And over about a year and a half, he gradually drew a group of people to himself and led them out. So I just didn't see it. I had lessons to learn about trusting who to trust and what credentials I should look for in people, and didn't believe that someone would do that. So that was a huge mistake and devastating at the time, and caused all kinds of havoc, not just for me, but for lots of people. Managed to rebuild and regroup after that, but it was a hard slog. The fun part of it, growing fast initially, it became a slog, which wasn't enjoyable. So that's one. I think then as I got back into it and sort of took the reins on, I devoted myself way too much to the work. And I neglected myself in that. Didn't stay fit. Physically, I'd always played sports when I was younger, and mostly team sports. So in that environment, you're getting fit as a byproduct of enjoying the team environment and playing the sport. And so I wasn't a gym person. I wasn't someone who went and exercised on their own. So when I didn't have time for team sport, my fitness started to go. And so working too hard, trying to please everybody, had that insecurity, trying to prove myself again because I'd failed with that big departure of people. And then I didn't build close relationships. I was working on it, but I didn't have people outside the organization that could kind of advise me. I didn't have mentors close enough to me. And so as a result of all that, I lost my sense of self. I totally devoted to my role and gradually lost my sense of self. And you don't realize that while you go through that, and stopped enjoying myself and felt very alone in the midst of that environment. So that's a lot of factors led to that. So it wasn't just one mistake; it was a lot of mistakes. and then that led to issues in my marriage, because I was coming home spent. I was using 90% of my energy in my work, and coming home tired and not really wanting to engage terribly. And my wife, fair enough, my wife had a legitimate gripe that I wasn't available to her with energy, and wasn't thinking about the family enough. So that led to all kinds of tensions in the home and the marriage, which I didn't know what to do about. So I was getting praise and encouragement and lots of kudos from my work, and getting criticism at home. So stupidly, I spent more time at work because that was where I was getting fed more. So if I had dealt with that differently, I would have, because my marriage ended up failing and I ended up having to leave the role because I was burning myself out. So if I'd addressed those issues earlier on, I would have saved my marriage and family, and there's a whole journey there. And I would have done the role very differently, or maybe got out of the role earlier, because there's a time limit to roles, and I didn't see that.
That's really interesting, John, and thank you for being so open with sharing that experience. And the two things that I took away from that is, one is, and which I want to delve in a little bit deeper, is this idea of trusting people, right? Because in building a relationship, trust plays a significant role. It's a pillar to a relationship. And so, what was the key takeaway, the gem? You said, I've learned about trusting people. So what was that lesson, and how do you apply it?
Well, it's multi-layered. It's not just one thing, I guess.
Sure.
But I guess I trusted this guy because he was experienced elsewhere. He came with a little bit of reputation. Some people liked him, but I in my gut, I didn't really I never got close to him. So I trusted him based on his reputation rather than based on what I knew of him. And that was a big mistake. I need people to connect. I need to connect with people personally if they're going to come into a senior role in my inner circle. And I need to know them for who they are now, not what they used to be or might have been or what other people think they are. And I've learned that well and truly. Most people who come with reputation who can't connect with you within a few weeks or a few meetings, there's a problem with them. So I've learned to my discernment levels are up, and based on my experience.
So again, if we break that up, there seems to be two gems in there, and that is not to judge somebody on paper, because on paper they may look amazing, right?
Yep.
That's one gem. So that's, even when you're employing or assessing anybody for whatever role, on paper that's only a small fraction, of what you should consider. The other one, it sounds like, two things. Again, if you break that down further, is values and your gut feeling, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that. Yeah. I couldn't improve on that.
So being clear ourselves of what our values are, and then looking for those values in others, is another pillar of trusting people and making sure we share the same values. But also the one that I find the most intriguing, which you mentioned twice, was this idea of trusting your gut feel.
Yep. There's got to be that connection, and it's got to be a personal with people who are going to work closely with you, that you're going to trust with parts of with serious responsibility. There's got to be a sense of connection with them, and a sense that that they get me, and that I can connect with them, and we can relate. And it's got to be bigger than work. Like, there's got to be a human relationship in there, not just a function relationship.
So on that, what came to my mind, John, was often people, when you meet them for the first time, they put their best foot forward.
Yes.
Right. So from your lessons, how do you get past that, John? Is that then trusting your gut more because it has maybe an intuitive sense? I don't know. I'm asking you.
I listen to that. I listen to my gut. And if there's something that disturbs me there, I'll explore it. But I think not to rush. What do they say? You hire slowly and you fire quickly. So I think we're often in a rush to fix things, and if you make in a hiring situation, if you make a mistake, it can ruin. I mean, it can cost you a lot of money, because hiring people and then getting rid of them is expensive from a salary point of view, and a missed opportunity. But then they affect other people, so you can lose momentum. You can lose all kinds of things on your team. Maybe other team members start to doubt you because why did you hire this person? It's not what they can tell that there's something wrong. And if you missed it, what's wrong with you? So you start to cause doubts in the team. So it's important to check things out. So I wouldn't just hire on one interview. I would get people to come and ideally work spend some time with them somehow, and then spend some time with the team, and then get a group feedback on the person. In an environment where we're chasing talent, it's you want to grab people quickly. It's harder to do that, and you've got to trust your gut and be willing to make some mistakes. Absolutely. But even so, I would want to do it not just based on my view, but get others on the team who are already in and trust, to have their view as well. It's
interesting to say that, John. I used to interview people. The second interview was with my entire team in the boardroom. Yeah. And everybody would ask questions to make sure they felt, well, my team felt empowered, but also that they felt that they had a connection, they had a gut feel. So it wasn't just my gut feel, but it was everybody's gut feel. Right?
Yep.
So
I agree.
I was hedging my bets, I guess.
That's wise.
Yeah. So one of the other things that stood out, this idea of balance, right? And in your book, Integrate, it's all about work life, how they've integrated in everybody's life now. And I'm assuming I left this one to last because I know you've probably got a lot to talk about when you talk about life balance, because you mentioned team sports, the family that suffered from your lack of balance, but also you personally suffered from the lack of balance in the areas of, again, there's the team sport, and I'm sure there's other areas, because team sport then goes to health, and health then gets split into your physical and mental health as well, and emotional health. So they're all like spider webs. So the whole integration is very integrate. So do you want to just expand on that?
Yeah, well, I actually don't believe in work-life balance. That's what I say in my book. I think it's a myth, because if you're passionate about your work, then you're going to have times in your work where you're really spending long hours doing things to get things off the ground, to start a new project or whatever. And you need to understand the dynamic there, but be looking at ways, how do you integrate your world of work, which is significant, slab of your life, with everything else that's precious in your life, which is your family, key relationships, your health, making sure you're learning and growing, your wealth creation, all of those different aspects of your life, as well as making your home and your family, where you live, the way you want it, and having time to do that. So I didn't do that well when I was so devoted to my work. And it seems to me, looking at it and researching it for the book I wrote, that work is the one thing that can consume everything, because there's such a link between our identity and work, our proving ourselves in work. That there's all these things that can become unhealthy if we have a wrong linking to our work. So it's one thing to be successful, but success isn't just in your work and how much money you make. It's how well your family life goes, how your health's going right across your world. So I've learned to be deliberate about that. I know if I get committed and passionate about doing my work, I can lose track of time and neglect things that are important. And usually the things that sabotage, like in my case, and I think in most cases, 90% of the things that sabotage our success in work come from neglected areas in our personal world. So we've got to make sure we don't neglect our personal life. So you have to have a deliberate plan, is what I've learned. So to have a plan that says, okay, well, what am I doing across these 6 or 8 areas of my life that are important, as well as my work? What are my goals? And having touching that every quarter is what I do. I've done that now for 14 years, 15 years, and teach others to do it as well. What am I doing? Not just to grow my business, but to make sure my wealth creation's in place, so that my marriage is strong, that my relationship with my kids is good, and my grandkids now. I've got 7 grandchildren. To get around them in a 3-month period, you can go 3 months and not see them or not have a really good time with them, but you've got to work at it and plan it in to your calendar. Otherwise, it's gone. They grow up so fast. So it's a matter of really working on that and being deliberate about it. I've found is the key to having progress across all the key areas of my life, not just my business or finances, which, they're important, but they're not everything.
Yeah. So there are times when one has to pivot or change course due to foreseeable failure, if not already a failure. When did you realize it wasn't going to work? Like we're just talking now about the grandchildren and intentionally making sure that you're making time for them. But if we take a few steps back before you made this realization, what had occurred? I mean, obviously you spoke about how there was a breakdown in the family. But there must have been some signs. When did you realize it wasn't going to work anymore?
I began to realize I would get to a day off back when I was running the church, and we grew to 1,000 members, and we were serving 3,000 people every month in the local area and doing things overseas. I was taking teams overseas regularly, or teams were going out from our church. So it was a great environment, very successful for everybody but me, which is interesting. And so I began to realize I get to a day off and I wouldn't know what to do. I couldn't relax. I couldn't unwind. And I was only happy when I was working, or that was what engaged me. Other things, I think I was a reasonable dad, but my marriage didn't engage me, and there was conflict there, so I would avoid that. To my shame, looking back now, I was a total wuss. I should have bit the bullet, got some help, and faced the issues there, which weren't. I mean, there was some significant issues there. But so I began to realize when I get to a day off and didn't know what to do. So but I didn't do much about it. But became vulnerable, lonely, and then I actually had an affair. I got into a situation which I should never have got into, and that brought everything crashing down. So I had to resign. I had to deal with the marriage, like see if it could be fixed. There was a mountain to climb there, which wasn't going to work. So then spent 2 years trying to work out what on earth happened, because I busily helping people find their way in life, and I lost my way in life. It's a huge irony. Spent time with a psychologist. It was really helpful for about 10 months. Then I began to do some personal development courses. One thing I did when I moved out of home and I was living on my own for a period, I joined an exercise class. I was working like a nothing job, like just in a pool shop, just for cash flow, and did an exercise class 3 evenings a week, like 6 o'clock after work. And after the pain of getting fit, there's about a month of the muscle pain you've got to deal with when you go back to exercise. I couldn't believe in that class how quickly I would de-stress. And I realized, if I had stayed fit and found a way to do this sort of exercise regularly when I was back in the busy role I had, my emotional health would have been much, much better, because there's such a link between physical fitness and emotional health and de-stressing. For me, it was just night and day. I couldn't believe it. So I've worked on that ever since, and stay very fit now, and enjoy that. I enjoy feeling strong in my body, and playing sports that I play now. I've got time for it now. I make time for it and refuse to allow my business to take over my life. In fact, one of the questions I ask my clients is, how is your business serving your life? Because if your business
That's a great question.
Yeah, and usually they're not sure, so it's actually probably wrecking my life.
Yeah.
And So I help people address that now, which I've learned a few things about it for the hard way.
And on that point, John, on that exact point, without these gems, do you think you would have been as successful as you are now in your coaching and mentoring career?
No, I would have. I don't know what we learn from success. So if you're just doing it and it's working, unless you're a thinker and ponder it and dig deep into what's going on, you don't learn the lessons. You learn the lessons often through the difficult times in life. If you're smart and if you've got help around you and support around you to point things out, or if you've got good mentors, you can learn the lessons with less pain. And I think that's the key. I was a very self-sufficient kind of type. I grew up in that way. And asking for help is hard for me. It's actually still hard. I do it better now, but I still find it difficult to admit that I don't know what I'm doing. And can you help me, please? So we've got to go over that in order to avoid the pain and get other people's help.
I agree. That's why it's important to have a community around you. So now we're getting into a bit more of the fun part of the podcast.
Okay.
On a lighter note, as the founder of One Point, we're diving into a fun and fast-paced segment called the questions. So, John, I'll be asking you to respond with just one word or one line. So let's keep it quick and insightful. And the first question is, what's one habit you're trying to quit right now?
Probably I spend too much time on this. So like not just relaxing with the phone, but staying active, getting outside more.
What is one inspirational trend quote you're obsessed with right now?
I came prepared with a book. This book, Essentialism by Greg McKeown, I recommend it. He says at the end of this book, he says, if you have correctly identified what really matters, if you invest your time and energy in it, then it's difficult to regret the choices you make. You become proud of the life you've chosen to live. I resonate so much with me. Knowing what's essential in this season, what's most important, and doing that. That's all you have to do in life. It makes it very simple.
Absolutely. And John, what is one word that is not in John's dictionary?
Victim.
Like that. That's really a very powerful word to avoid, seeing yourself as a victim.
100% responsible for everything in my life, even stuff other people do.
That's very empowering. Describe one word, John, that motivates you to try one more time.
Legacy. And that's not sort of, I don't care how famous or not I am. It's more important that my daughters and my grandchildren are proud of their pop and their father, and that my wife's proud of me as a husband. So legacy to them and to future generations is what motivates me, and whatever impact I can have beyond my family, that's a bonus.
Wow, that's wonderful, John. Before we say goodbye, what is the one piece of advice you'd like to share with our audience, especially those who are struggling to overcome a setback or move forward from a situation?
What I found hard, I've already mentioned, is to ask for help and to make the time to invest in you. I think often we feel guilty about that, or that it's not worth it, or why would we pay to get help to work on me? But it's really critical, and I think in these days when maybe we're not as closely bonded with people around about us, or there's nobody in your world that's got the insight that you need, to reach out for that. It's such an important thing to invest in yourself and to have people around you that are insightful, that can help you with that. Because to me, business success is a personal growth journey. So if I'm not growing, then my business is going to struggle, or my life is going to struggle. So I encourage you to invest in yourself.
Very, very wise words. John, this conversation was extremely amazing. I appreciate you taking the time today to join me on Blunders to Blessings. Before we wrap this conversation up, I'd just like to say from my perspective, the key points, I guess, that have come out is this sense of, really purposely making sure you have a balanced life. And secondly, trusting your instincts a little bit more when it comes to people, and not necessarily making judgment based on what's written on paper. So those are the two important takeaways, and because I can resonate with both, and that's why they reinforce some of my own belief systems. But again, thank you for listening to Blunders to Blessings with Kerim. Please subscribe, share, and leave a review. Thank you, guys.
You've been listening to Blunders to Blessings with Kerim. For more podcast, Visit us at www.blunderstoblessings.1pt.com.au.